you think that the propaganda lends itself to, I'm sorry, but like the top podcasts for women are like, they talk about being promiscuous, there's
Hey,
gossip.
can I do my woman podcast impression for you?
Oh God.
Okay, ready?
I'm gonna be like, I hate to do this, but I like, as raising a daughter.
Yeah, how are you feeling? Yeah. But what about have you heard of Yes? Yeah. They're so insufferable. They're so insufferable. I can't take it. It's too much. I'm like, what? It's just so insufferable.
I'm so
But anyway.
ashamed to say that I don't disagree with you. What is that, do you think? What is I just see all of these narratives, and you're bringing up a few of them, but there are so many others. What is behind this propaganda, do you think? Because I'm starting to think it's like, China and Russia and radical Islam. Like, am I losing my mind? Like, I genuinely am starting to think this.
Yeah, like you're not. The thing is that with the ideals of universal suffrage came the ideas of voting blocks, competing interests with each other. So it doesn't really feel like much of a United States, does it?
Oh my God.
No, it doesn't. It feels like we're a bunch of small tribes and we're all warring for power. And that's actually what we're doing, because we all have we have different blocks of ideas with different interest base of those ideas, and we're competing because for the power of the vote. That's what we're competing for. We want the biggest block we can get so that our ideas win.
Okay.
And so that our worldview is the one that ends up kind of taking over or becoming the dominant worldview. That's the very idea of what it is that universal suffrage did. So with all these different worldviews competing, really, is it any wonder that things are so divided and they feel so divisive and they feel like it's very tribal? Well, it feels like that because it is. So you're not crazy. You're not going mad when you see that people are like, what the hell are these people over here thinking? Well, they're thinking within the confines of their personal interest and worldview, and they want power towards that worldview, and they're going to take actions towards that. That's one of the other problems with everybody can just vote. It's always been silly. Pure democracy didn't work inside of Greece. It's never worked anywhere it was tried. Democracy expanded. It's always a terrible idea. We have a republic, checks and balances, a system in place, which is designed specifically to check government power, but also check people's power, right? It's designed to do that. And the universal suffrage has kind of created an imbalance to that. And so I think we got to retract a lot of that and move backwards towards what worked, because what's going on right now doesn't work.
What did work? I mean, I just remember life being easier as a kid, but my mom voted, my dad voted. I mean, would you be okay with, let's say, a competency test to vote? So if you're 18, you have to pass a competency test and knowledge of the issues, some way to prove you at least understand what you're voting on?
I'm not even sure a test would be the best idea. I think that there's a multitude of ways to do this, and all of them have kind of their pros and their cons. And I think that that's the debate which should be had, rather than we should just grant that this is just the way things are, because it's not a good way to live.
Okay.
But some of the ways that you could mitigate this, you could do what's called one household voting, and that would just be like married couples can vote. Right. And you only get one vote per household. And so the idea there is that a husband's not divided against their wife. Right. You have one house voting. That's one way that you could do it. There's problems with that, too.
Though, then I'm going to be like, what if I'm not married? Now you're going to force me to get married.
That's part of the incentive, though, right? Part of the incentive is like, well, if you're married, you're probably going to have kids, and those kids are probably going to be much more well-adjusted in society than if you have them unmarried. So that'd be part of like an incentive program too. So that's one aspect of a way you could do it. I'm not saying that's the one I advocate for, just kind of giving you different options which have been presented. Another stakeholder, meaning you have to actually have property bought and be paying taxes on it. Though I think that that's
they're going to tell you they can't, and then it's a trap because it's all set up. So then you're going to hear that one.
Yep, and also that could be the least effective for other reasons that I don't even think are really relevant to the conversation. But it could create other issues. One really good proposition from various libertarians that I think has a lot of merit is that people who pay more into the system than they get out of the
Oh,
system
I
should be able to vote. And so
I
this
like
creates
that.
incentives for people who want
Now
to
you're
vote.
speaking my language.
Yeah, so that gives incentives to people who want to
I like
vote
that one a lot.
to become a net gain
I get
to
what yeah.
society
Mhm.
rather than and what that would do ultimately is it would also cut down social welfare, it would cut down social programs, it would cut down entitlements, which is the largest spending in the United States. So
Wow.
you could look at that option.
I get it.
There's a multitude of ways to kind of look at this where it's like we're not going to even you don't even have to disenfranchise. It's not even that's not even necessary. Women by a natural process will just limit their votes anyway because they'll be less interested in that from the political perspective. And so, by the way, will many men or even most men. The whole idea here, though, is that you want the people in society to vote who have either the best stake towards the thing
Right.
or they have the education on the thing. And there's only so many different ways you can do that where you're kind of narrowing the bracket down to the people who really should be doing it. And it
Okay.
also that will cut down tribalism drastically. And
So if I can show that I'm contributing, just hypothetically, right? If I can show
Sure.
that I'm contributing and I'm invested in our country, it doesn't matter. Would you say, okay, at that point, doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, if you're equally giving back to the system more than you take, would there be some sort of equal playing field there despite having testicles?
Yeah,
or
you
ovaries?
could sure you could have the system set up if egalitarianism is still the mode that you want to operate under. Like I want to
I
be
don't think
equal.
you're ever gonna get Andrew.
that's
I just don't know. It's gonna be like, yeah, take my right to vote.
Sure,
There's
no,
no
look,
universe, and it's gonna make them more
but I want to let you know
like,
that
evil
once upon a
patriarch. It's gonna lean
time,
into that though.
yeah, but once upon a time, it was the opposite. That women said women are never going to want the right to vote, and it was women who said that.
Was that a better
Overwhelmingly.
time necessarily though? I mean,
Yes,
I don't know. I'd have to ask my grandmother who passed away.
100% a better time. Well, I mean, it wasn't better technologically, but it but that was due to the confines of it being pre-industrialization, but even post-industrialization, when you still had some limits on voting. Yeah, I would say that at least the spirit of the U.S. was a far more moral place and a far less degenerate and horrific place to live in, for sure, when it came to those issues. But most wallets still plug into the same system we were trying to escape in the first place, and that's why Rumble built Rumble Wallet. It's a self-custodial wallet that lives inside an ecosystem that actually defends free speech and financial freedom. No bank holding your balance, not even Rumble can touch your funds. This is your money on your keys, on your terms. So if you're serious about sovereignty, financial and digital, this is where you level up. Go to wallet.rumble.com or search Rumble Wallet in your app store, download it, back up your recovery phrase, and move your money where it belongs, in your hands. That aside, I'm just saying, yes, you could make it completely fair across the board, men and women, if you wanted to. And the idea here is just, hey, if you're a net gain to the system rather than a parasite on the system, you can go ahead and cast your ballot, male or female. I wouldn't have a problem with that system
Look, I
because
don't
it
have a problem with
limits
that system either.
suffrage.
That's
It
like,
limits suffrage, and that's my ultimate goal, right? Is to
Yeah.
limit suffrage down to prevent the ideas of tribalism and things like this, and also to prevent all the money which comes into politics from third-party systems and NGOs and think tanks and things like this, and PACs and super PACs, which just pump billions and billions of dollars into the system in order to influence these various voting blocks. That's where all that money comes in.
I know. Do you think that there is any universe where that can be reformed? Because
Yes.
you do? Because
Yes.
without being able to reform the campaign finance, I just don't know how you ever. Can I ask you this? So many
Sure.
people get really upset when I talk about wanting to regulate big food or big pharma or big insurance. It's like, I don't want big government. I'm like, well, they certainly want big government working for them. They're paying a heck of a lot of money to get big government to work on their behalf. And you think I'm crazy? Like, I want these monster corporations to be regulated. They should not be able to put poison in our food. And it's like, I don't want a nanny state, but everything. But then by the time we're done, everything is going to have pesticide, herbicide, fungicide, fake fat, fake color, fake flavor. We're seeing, I'm looking at this from a health perspective, right? I am seeing all of this evil that these guys are allowed to do for profit. But on the other hand, it's like, oh, you just want a nanny state. What do you see here?
Well, the thing, when I break down what big government is, Big government is mostly set in military and entitlement spending, right? So that's where it all is. Entitlement spending, especially, that's the number one expenditure that we as a country do is on entitlements. The second is military. Both of those. Now, I would argue that at least from the military perspective, perhaps having a bloated budget there may not be the worst idea for the security of the United States.
Yeah, I
When you're
hear
the
you.
global hegemon, having the
Sure.
most powerful, vicious military on planet Earth, I think, is an advantage.
Yeah.
But massive entitlement spending is not a huge advantage. And that's the number one expenditure. If it was the case that you were to draw down on some of the bloating, like what Trump was trying to do with
Yeah.
USAID and other programs like this, I wouldn't have any problem with food regulation because the way that we distribute food now is far different than the locally grown organic things that we used to have
Yeah.
in ages past when people did not have these massive stomach issues and all of the various autoimmune system issues, which basically are all coming from the things that they eat. My wife has talked about this pretty in depth too. She's a kind of in the fitness aspect of things like you are. I don't know why the hell she's with me, but that's her thing, right? And I don't think that there's an actual problem there with the idea of regulating out actual poisons. In fact, that's one of the few functions government is
That's
supposed to have
okay.
is to take care of the health and welfare of the people of the United
Right.
States. That's in the Constitution itself.
Okay. Thank you for that. Because sometimes, you speak on more conservative, or when I go on more conservative news channels, it's like, okay, but we don't want a nanny state. We really don't want big government getting involved. I'm thinking this is
Well, that's
exactly.
small government in comparison to the things that are actually
I
big
get it.
government.
I
So if
understand.
I was gonna point out like big government, I would be I'd be looking at what many other things before I would look at whether or not testing in meat factories for listeria was
Yeah.
going to be cut from the budget. Does that mean that there wouldn't be waste, fraud, and abuse in that system? Of course there would be. But there's a lot more waste, fraud, and abuse likely to come up in systems where Somalians are pretending that they have daycares and taking in
Yeah.
hundreds of millions of dollars of
Crazy.
tax paid dollars to take care of the elderly that they're not even taking care of. And that's happening in multitudes of states now that it's being pointed out. And the thing is like a little bit of oversight there actually would have saved the state, maybe billions of dollars.
Right.
So when you're talking about the bloating of government and big government, we're talking about Reagan's ideas, of cutting government down. But you're supposed to cut out departments which are useless and worthless and are not doing any. They're not really assisting with the health and the welfare of the people. One thing about food intake, and now in the world of vaccines and medicine, where people are getting prescriptions for all sorts of things, that industry, of course, you want to have oversight on for the purposes of regulating the health and welfare of people. Like
Right.
that's part and parcel of how things ought to operate inside of a nation, right? That's the point. You're going to have some oversight there.
Okay.
But I do think that you can cut down the size of government in other arenas, and you would save way
I,
more money than trying to cut it out of food safety.